The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the FSAI's Breakfast Bite, the legal position of cannabis-based food products like CBD oils in the EU and Ireland. I'm Emma, and I'll be your host for the event this morning. And I'm joined here by my colleague, Dr. Pat O'Mahony, Chief Specialist, Food Science and Technology here at the FSAI. So in this short webinar this morning, Pat will discuss the legal situation governing the sale of cannabis or hemp products as food in the EU and specifically in Ireland. And behind the scenes, this event is supported by Elaine, Jane and Christina, who are working very hard to ensure that everything runs smoothly for us. So we're very pleased so many of you could join us here online today. The webinar will last 40 minutes in total, so 30 minutes for Pat's presentation, followed by 10 minutes at the end, which will give us time for questions and answers. If you do have any questions for Pat, you can pop them in the questions box on your screen throughout the talk, and we'll do our best to get them all at the end. So Pat has provided a copy of his presentation that you might find useful after the event. You'll notice this in the handout section on your screen, and it can be downloaded any time before the event finishes this morning. And lastly, if you're on social media, please do let us know at #FSAI events. And now I'll hand you over to Pat. Enjoy.
Okay, thanks, Emma, and welcome everybody. I'm going to turn off my camera in a minute, but just before we do, there's a few kind of housekeeping bits I want to share with you. So first of all, thanks to Emma and her colleagues in the communication section. These things don't happen by themselves. We have a good number of people here this morning, and just in case all technology breaks down and I go off the air, my colleague Christina Arroyo will step in, hopefully, and continue on, because while these things are working pretty well, you just don't know when somebody with a digger will snap your cable outside the front of the house or whatever. So if it does, we have backup in store. We have a wide spectrum of audience this morning. We have a good number of people from various backgrounds. We do these breakfast bites fairly regularly, and the idea of them, even though they're short and brief, they're to update whoever is interested in the food industry or in the regulatory industry or whatever it is with what the latest is. And so we hope you'll find this useful. Now, the CBD and the hemp issue has been discussed at European level and even worldwide for the last 6 or 7 years. So it probably will be difficult to condense all of that into 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but I'll do my best. And afterwards, you can ask questions, or even as we go through, you can pop the questions into the questions box, because I will be jumping from topic to topic. It is a bit of a complex area, so I'll have to go back and forth between THC and food law and CBD, etc. For those of you who are not too familiar with the Food Safety Authority, we're a consumer protection body, so we're a government agency. Our role is to look after the consumer, basically, and implement food law. We don't have a policy remit. That's the job of our policymakers in the Department of Health and Agriculture. And of course, we're also a part of, Ireland is part of the EU still, and I make this point later, because our nearest neighbours in the UK are not part of the UK, and therefore they have deviated somewhat in how they deal with certain aspects of food law, including CBD issues. So with that, I'm going to turn off my camera and I might just start the presentation as such. Okay, so we're on slide number 1 here now. So the first thing I want to make people aware of, and this comes out of necessity, a lot of the time we get interactions with the food industry. People say, I've seen this product and I want to sell it, I want to buy it and sell it under my own brand or whatever. Well, in Ireland, if you're a food business, you have to be registered with the Environmental Health Service of the HSE. That's a prerequisite. You can't be a food business otherwise. In Ireland also, and I think this also goes for many member states, if not all of them, supplements must be notified to the Food Safety Authority before they're placed on the market. Now, it's important to remember this is not an authorization. This is a notification as such. And when we get those notifications in, and we do get somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 a year, we do check the labels, we check that they're not novel foods, etc., etc. So there is a bit of work. We do have an online system. If you go to the FSAI website, you'll see an online system where you can notify your supplements. Something which I'll touch on again a few times, novel foods must be authorized before being placed on the EU market. It's come to our attention on more than one occasion that people are putting foods on the market, especially in the CBD area, that shouldn't be on the market because they're novel foods, but I'll touch on that in more detail later. You also need to be very wary of what you put on in terms of nutrition or health claims. There is specific legislation on this. And again, you can't make claims in terms of nutrition or health without them being authorized at EU level. This can make life awkward for companies who are not aware of it, but this is a good heads up. Now, the next two lines are a bit of laziness on my part, but it gets the message across. A food is not a medicine, and a medicine is not a food. So if it's a food in Ireland, the Food Safety Authority, with our official agencies and the HSE and others, will be looking after it and controlling it. If it's a medicine, our colleagues in the medicine side, the Health Products Regulatory Authority, will be looking after it. A food will never be a medicine, and a medicine will never be a food. So we sit with the HPRA on a regular basis, and we're in contact very regular, especially in the area of supplements, where either claims are made or a supplement is on the market that has medicinal characteristics. And if it's a medicine, then the HPRA look after it. If it's a food, FSAI looks after it. And one final point, and this might look a bit facetious, but it's a fact. The UK has and probably will deviate somewhat from EU food law as time goes on. The UK is now no longer a member of the EU. They are our nearest neighbour, and therefore we have to be cognizant of what's going on in that market, all the while knowing that as an EU member, we have to implement and enforce EU food law, and there will be, and there are already, some deviations. If you want to find out more about CBD and CBD products in Ireland, we have an FAQ, frequently asked questions, on our website. We haven't updated this in a while because we haven't seen any need to, but if there are questions that we feel are not addressed, and if anybody in this audience wants to ask those questions, then we can always update that. Okay, so I'm not an expert on the cannabis plant, cannabis sativa. There are other varieties, cannabis indica, etc. But I think for the most part, when we talk about hemp and hemp products, it's cannabis sativa. So a few basic facts, and most of you in the industry, or I suppose in the CBD sphere, will know this already. There's more than 100 cannabinoids that have been identified. The two major ones are THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, and CBD, but there's 100 plus more, and I think the research is ongoing fairly vigorously into these because they may have properties that may be useful in some form or other. THC is already well known. It's a psychotropic, psychoactive as well. I'm not really sure are those terms interchangeable as such, but psychotropic means it's mind altering. So if you are into recreational cannabis, this is the actual component in the cannabis plant that gives you the high. Cannabidiol is one of the many other cannabinoids in there, and while it is psychoactive, in other words, it does have a receptor in the brain, and apparently does have certain characteristics that make it interact with the brain, it's not psychotropic, so it's not illegal as such. THC is a controlled substance in Ireland, and to be in possession or control of it, one has to have a ministerial license. I'll explain those later on. Something that is always coming back to us, despite how many times we have to, I suppose, reiterate it, the 0.2% THC tolerance, which applies to the plants for cultivation and for import, does not apply to food. I'll mention that again lately, but this information is put out there, whether by accident or mischievously, I'm not really sure which, but to be sure that as far as we're aware, there is nothing in food law that allows for a tolerance of THC. So the 0.2%, which is often quoted, does not apply to food. And something that I'm sure some of you know already, but cannabinoids may be found in other plants. And I suppose maybe down the road, it might be a way of avoiding the issues that surround cannabis and THC, etc. We're also aware of synthetic cannabinoids, and for example, in the EU novel food system, there are, I think, 3 or 4 synthetic CBD products undergoing assessment for authorization as novel foods. So just to give a bit of background on hemp food products in the Irish market. To be honest, I've been dealing with novel foods for 21 years now, and hemp and CBD was not an issue until probably 2016-17 when we initially started seeing interest. It has been discussed in food terms among EU member states and the Commission since about 2016, and for a number of years it was being discussed by a few member states, and we didn't really know what the issue was because we didn't realize that the product was going to become so popular. It probably does coincide with medicinal interest, and that's fine, but medicine is not a food as such, so we have to keep those separate. In around 2016 and 2017, we did notice complaints from industry about industry, and that was, it's not new as such, but we noticed the volume of complaints meant that there was something fishy about all this. Now, it is a lucrative business. These products are not cheap, but we had industry coming in to complain about their competitors for various reasons. There was some complaints by consumers, but not that many. To be honest, it was mainly industry complaining about competitors. There was also some international reports about hemp products not containing the declared amount of THC or containing too much THC. And if I remember rightly, one program was by the BBC. Trust Me, I'm a Doctor is the name of it. If you search on YouTube, I think you'll probably still find that. So for a number of years, we knew there was an issue with the market, which was growing rapidly, we knew, but we couldn't really do a whole lot about it because we didn't have an accredited lab. And our colleagues in the Public Analyst Lab in Dublin, which I'll shorten to DPAL, they got accreditation in August 2019. Since that, they've done several proficiency tests, and a report was published just last week of a ring trial in which they participated. So as far as we're concerned, the Public Analyst Lab in Dublin is accredited and also has successfully completed proficiency tests and ring trials. So the reason I highlight this is because a lot of the time when we get a new supplement that's been notified and it's a CBD product and we ask for a lab cert just to show that there's no THC and that there's the right amount of CBD, we more often than not get lab certs from unaccredited labs. This is a complex test, and if you don't have a cert from an accredited lab, then I'm afraid it's not going to be of much use. So in 2019, once the Dublin Public Analyst Lab was accredited, we decided to do a survey of the Irish market, more or less to confirm what we already knew, that it had got some way out of control. Products were being put on the market without authorization as such. And in some cases, as we found out, some of them were dangerous. We published the results of that survey last year, 2020, early in the year, just before COVID hit. And these are the bones of the results. So most of the products were found to contain THC at some level, but almost half of them contained a certain level of THC that, if taken at the maximum permitted dose, would exceed the acute reference dose of 1 microgram per kilogram body weight. Now, short of going out and weighing everybody individually, we put a level of 100 kilogram for a person as a standard. This is a generous level. If you do toxicology studies or anything like that, you pick a standard, I think, of 70 kilos. But we wanted to make sure we avoided any arguments that we were a bit too conservative. So 40% of those products were delivering or could deliver an amount of THC that, according to the European Food Safety Authority, the safety could not be guaranteed. Those products were removed from the market immediately. And of all the powers that the FSAI has, if we identify a safety issue, we can act pretty much immediately and then answer questions later. 34% of the samples were considered novel foods. I would give more detail about novel foods and what they are, but basically those products should not have been on the market. There has been considerable discussion at EU level about what is a novel food and what is not a novel food in these terms. So that argument is well and truly worn now at this stage. Another surprising issue, but I suppose considering the complaints we were getting initially, 41% of the products contained CBD levels which differed from the declared content by greater than 50%. Now, when you look at the results I'll show you later, the word fraud will probably come into your mind. 39% of the food supplements had not been notified to FSAI. So again, they shouldn't have been on the market at all. And 50% of the products we found were making fairly spurious and in some cases ridiculous claims, lactose-free, gluten-free, non-GMO, THC-free, and more. Because I suppose a lot of these products are aimed at people with certain issues, whether they be psychological or physical issues, and they're trying to blast them up. These are marketing gimmicks, and we certainly don't tolerate that kind of stuff. There is legislation out there to prohibit the use of misleading claims. So putting these results in a more succinct format, and I suppose in a context, I'll take the THC results first. These are some of the products that were taken off the market. And on the left-hand column, you'll see the amount of THC in milligrams of intake per day that were over the 0.1 milligram threshold, which we set for ourselves with a 100 kilo person. And as you can see, most of them are well in excess of the 0.1 milligram. There are two there in yellow, which I will discuss in the next slide and thereafter. But if you look over at the columns, all of these products, and I think of all the 38 products we surveyed, none of them had no issues. There was either they weren't notified as supplements, they were novel foods, or they had spurious claims, or the level of CBD in there was problematic as such, and that it was inaccurate. In terms of those two products that had the almost 2.5 milligrams of THC per day, this is an extract from a publication by the German Federal Institute for Risk Assessment in 2008. Now, for those of you who don't know the BFR, they're a very highly respected, reputable risk assessment body in Germany. And when they say something is dangerous, then you can take it that it is dangerous. So when they were looking at the exposure rates to THC in Germany, they reckon that at greater than 2.5 milligrams per person per day, the occurrence of pharmacological effects must be expected. As psychomotor effects may also be expected in this dose range, consumption of hemp-containing foods may also result in restrictions in a person's ability to drive or operate a dangerous piece of machinery. What this says to anybody who reads it is that the products that we highlighted in the last slide that were up at around 2.5 milligrams, people who are taking that product should not be driving, should not be operating machinery, and even more so, as I'll explain later on. Just to skip quickly through to the national legislation, in Ireland we have the Misuse of Drugs Act of 1977 as amended. As per that act, THC is a controlled substance. There is no threshold, and therefore to have control or possession of that substance is a breach of that act unless you have a ministerial license. It's not part of food law, and therefore it's not within the FSAI remit to act on the basis of that. Now, what it does mean is that if you take a product with THC in it, even at low levels, you are putting yourself at risk of failing a drug test at a road safety checkpoint. Professionals like airline pilots, bus drivers, etc., could be tested positive and therefore risk their professional careers. And of course, if you're an elite or professional athlete, you also put yourself in danger of failing a drugs test. And if you don't believe that from us, you can look at the Sport Ireland website. And at the very bottom there, it does explain that CBD products pose a risk to athletes, and athletes use CBD products at their own risk. Now, it might not surprise you to note that there are certain athletes, shall we say, in professional circles that are promoting these products, even though anyone who takes it and is in the professional level does risk being banned for certain periods of time or whatever. That's not a food safety issue, that's a different issue, but it's worth highlighting, I think. Now, moving on to the CBD aspects of the survey, we found a lot of problems again, and they're all put in context here. I suppose the big thing that did surprise us that when we looked using an accredited lab and an accredited method, we found that products ranged in levels of CBD compared to the declared amount, all the way from 0 up to 180%. Now, there is an old saying in Ireland that if there's good in a little, there's good in a lot. Well, at the moment, there is no safe upper limit established for CBD. And so we weren't able to take any action on the basis of, over excessive amounts of CBD. That might change in the future when FSA do come up with an upper safe level limit, but at the moment we don't have that. What does stand out here is that there are products on the market that have pretty much 0 or very low levels of CBD in them, even though they declare certain milligrams. Now, as well as that, if you look across the columns, you'll see that all these products have different issues as well. They're novel foods, they're not notified as supplements, and they have all these spurious claims on there. So I'm going to talk about novel foods because I know, even though we've been at it for a long time and it's second nature to us, a lot of people won't be aware of what a novel food is. A novel food is actually, you'll find it in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Europe as well. So basically a food or a food ingredient that has not been used for human consumption to a significant degree in the EU prior to May 15th, 1997 is a novel food, and it must be authorized before being placed on the market. We have a novel food working group in Brussels, and ourselves, myself, Christina, and colleagues from all over the other member states sit there and we trash out details like, is this a novel food? Is that a novel food? And we more or less all the time agree, not all the time, but most of the time agree, not all the time. Now, the one thing I have in big red letters here, as you can see, a novel food cannot be placed on the EU market until authorized and present in the Union list of novel foods. The reason I've put that in such bold letters here is because I think people in Ireland and probably other member states as well are being told by suppliers of these products, I have a novel food application in, and therefore I'm allowed to put that on the market. If you read Article 6.2 of the Novel Food Regulation, it will tell you that you cannot place a novel food on the market unless it's authorized and in the Union list. So we're fairly sure that people are being conned and duped by suppliers who just want to make money. And we're coming along then as a regulatory authority and taking these products off the market, and the people who buy them or import them are at a loss, a financial loss. If you want to know all the details about the European Novel Food Regulation, the Commission website at the bottom is a very useful source, and I think there's nothing in there that can't be answered on that website. I'm not dealing with THC in terms of novel food because THC is not a food, as I'll explain later. As part of the novel food, way back in the early 2000s, member states and the Commission set up what we call the Novel Food Catalogue, and the reason for this was we were getting lots of questions. And then after a year or two, the same questions would come back. And of course, people change in the Commission and people change in the member states. And in some cases, different answers were being given out for the same products. So we decided to set up the Novel Food Catalogue. It's a non-binding, non-legal, I suppose, just a source of information on the discussions, a record of the discussions we've had at that level. If something is deemed a novel food in here, it can be reversed to a not novel food if somebody can come up with evidence of a history of consumption before 1997. Now, the unfortunate thing is 1997 is 24 years ago at this stage, last century. So it's becoming more difficult the further away we get from it. But still, that's the policymaker's decision. 1997 is the actual time from which this regulation takes effect. Now, when it comes to cannabis, I've looked through the records and there was a mention in 2002, but in 2009, we did discuss it and we were able to decide at that stage, member states and the Commission, that cannabis is probably not a novel food. And that's written there in the red lines. Without prejudice to other legal requirements concerning the consumption of hemp, cannabis sativa and hemp products, Regulation 258/97, which was the original novel food regulation, is not applicable to most food and food ingredients from this plant. Now, at the moment, that is a different interpretation to what many other member states would think. So we in Ireland believe that hemp and hemp products that are used as foods are not novel foods, unless you want to start refining and concentrating and purifying. Other member states don't believe that, so I think most other member states consider any product from the cannabis plant as either a medicine, a narcotic, or a novel food. As far as I'm aware, in Ireland is probably one of the few member states that allows some products on the market, but it's not all products, and I'll go on to explain. The novel food catalogue now and the website for it below has been refined somewhat. And the only part of the cannabis plant where there is unanimous agreement that is not a novel food is the hemp seed oil, hemp seed flour, etc. Now, if you start processing those products and refining them and extracting and whatnot other components, then you can make that product a novel food. I have highlighted the 0.2% there again. We removed that from our FAQ because people kept misinterpreting it as meaning it's applicable to food. It's not applicable to food, even though it's fairly well spelled out there now in the novel food catalogue. It applies only to the cultivation and the import of plants. When you go to cannabinoids on the novel food catalogue, it's fairly clear what I just mentioned, that if you have an extract of cannabis, the derived products containing cannabinoids are considered novel foods, because a history of consumption has not been demonstrated. Now, we've had 2 working groups at least where we had the industry present and they were asked to present their evidence for a history of consumption. They failed to convince any member states or the Commission. And so novel foods, hemp products that have been purified, concentrated, etc., are novel foods. And until evidence to the contrary comes to us and is evaluated, then that's the way it stands. So this novel food status applies to the extracts themselves, purified CBD in other words, and any products to which they're added. So we're aware of products like hemp seed oil that obviously have CBD, concentrated CBD added to it. That becomes a novel food. Hemp seed oil obviously in itself is not a novel food. So when you add concentrated CBD or a novel food as such, it too becomes a novel food. Also in here, it explains that other plants do actually contain cannabinoids. So if and when the industry decides to go that route, they will also be considered novel foods and have to be authorized. Again, it qualifies in here that synthetically obtained cannabinoids are novel and require authorization as well. So I'm going to go a bit outside now again and go to general food law. In general food law, Article 2 defines food, which in most European food law, there is definitions provided just to make sure everyone knows what they're talking about. But in general food law, they also talk about what is not a food or what is not included under the definition of a food. This includes animal feed, live animals, plants prior to harvesting, medicinal products, cosmetics, tobacco, and point G down there that I've highlighted, narcotic or psychotropic substances within the meaning of the United Nations Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, 1961, and the UN Convention on Psychotropic Substances, 1971. So just to clear up matters fairly quickly, THC is listed in the 1971 UN Convention on Psychotropic Substances. Therefore, THC is not a food. It can't be considered a food. Now, initially, when I read that, I was of the opinion it can't be in food, but of course, it's a contaminant, and there are many contaminants in food, so it's not specifically prohibited in food, it's just that it's a contaminant. In this case, there is no upper limit allowed, so it's just one of these anomalies, but I think there are moves at EU level to address that. What I'm going to do next is talk about what it means for cannabis in terms of the 1961 UN Convention. And in that convention, it states cannabis means the flowering or fruiting tops of the cannabis plant. And there's other text in there as well. What this means, and I can apply this directly to some products we see on the market. CBD tea, for example, in some cases, is whole flowers or buds of the hemp plant, cannabis plant. Because of the UN Convention, because of general food law, these are illegal because they're narcotic. It doesn't matter if there's little or no CBD or THC in there. It's a fairly black and white interpretation of what is food law. And I think this hopefully will clear up that aspect of it, because there are some of these products being sold as food when that's not legally possible. Now, there was a European Court of Justice ruling late last year in 2020, and it did clarify a number of matters. It was a ruling on a vaping product that was sold in one member state and prohibited in another member state. So it had no impact on food as such. There's no mention of food in the actual ruling. But what it did clarify, and it helped us in the Irish situation, in the Irish context, it says in there, just because it comes from the flower, CBD is not a narcotic drug. So in other words, if one extracts the oil from the whole plant, including the flower, one could interpret that use of the flower is a narcotic drug and therefore shouldn't be allowed. You get the court rule that just because it's from the flower or includes the flower, it doesn't make it a drug. So that cleared it up for us really, and hopefully for other people as well. The ruling also made a few other interesting statements. Contrary to the arguments sometimes put forward by establishments offering cannabinoid-based products for sale, the authorized Delta-9 THC content of 0.2% applies to the cannabis plant and not to the finished product resulting from it. Now, we can show you, lots of bits of legislation, etc., where we can demonstrate that the 0.2% only applies to the plant. This is a ruling from the European Court of Justice, and it puts it in fairly black and white. The 0.2% THC only applies to, does not apply to food. It only applies to cultivation and import. Another interesting point they clarify, it should be noted that CBD is found mainly in the leaves and flowers of the plant and not in the fibers and seeds. Now I can show you many peer-reviewed scientific publications that will tell you that hemp seeds do not produce or contain cannabinoids, including CBD or THC. There can be certain levels of those cannabinoids in seeds and seed-derived products purely from contamination by surrounding plant material. But at the end of the day, hemp seed and hemp seed oil can only contain low levels of CBD, and it's probably from contamination from surrounding plant material. This is a problem because we see many products on the market made from hemp seed oil, for example, and they have glorious amounts of CBD in there. That's a problem. Somewhere along the line, CBD is being added in there, probably the concentrate, and if that's the case, then that product is a novel food and should be authorized. So just to finish, I think it would be remiss of me to not mention the problem that's come to light in recent months. And to be honest, this is not really an issue for the audience here, because I think we're dealing with people who are not drug traffickers or not drug dealers. But I thought it worthwhile mentioning because it is an issue in Ireland since, as well as far as we're aware, early this year, but it may have been going on before this. And this is the problem of drug trafficking, basically, through the avenue of sweets and children's products. And there have been a number of casualties in Ireland. Thankfully, as yet, nobody has died. But any chance we get, we do urge people to beware. If you have younger siblings, if you have nephews, nieces, sons, or daughters, apparently these are rampant in schools. And of course, it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt or dies. There's serious amounts of THC in these products. We're not yet sure how they're being produced or where they're coming from, but it's something we're alerting people as often as we can. So it also doesn't help the hemp industry in Ireland or other places, because already hemp and cannabis products, which are used as foods, have that association with, I suppose, recreational marijuana and stuff, and it's not helpful. And this doesn't actually help that case. So I think everyone will agree that we need to get that problem sorted for all our benefits. At the moment, we are working on that problem, but also with the CBD issue, and we have an issue in the country with our colleagues in the HSE, the Environmental Health Officers, the HPRA, which is the Medicines Regulatory Authority. The state laboratory are now on board in terms of testing, as we are also consulting with Forensic Science Ireland. And then, of course, we do work with our colleagues in the police force and Garda Síochána and customs as well, because a lot of the products that are on the market are coming in through our ports, and all working together, we will be able to sort this problem. And one final thing, I suppose, there have been complaints that in one respect, the FSAI don't take action on a product where they find THC unless there's a safety issue, and that's how we operate. But the Gardaí can go in and take a product off the shelf, and if there's any trace of THC in there, they can prosecute under the Misuse of Drugs Act. So that's just a fact of life. The legislation will have to change somehow if that's going to change. But it's a concern and a complaint we hear a lot. But these are things outside of our remit at the moment. So with that, I think I've gone over my time a little, and back to you, Emma, and we'll try and answer any questions you have.
Great. Thanks very much, Pat, for a super talk on the legal position of cannabis-based foods. Lots of really important information in there. So we've some really good questions coming in here now. I'll pick out a few. We've actually lots of questions. If we don't get to answer your question, please email info@fsai.ie and we'll get back to you. So the first one, Pat, for testing hemp-based products, what are the licenses required for food testing labs?
We don't talk in terms of licensing. Anybody can set up a lab as far as I'm aware, but if we're seeing new products coming on the market, and because of our experience with some labs that are not accredited, whose results vary considerably with the results we get from the accredited public analyst lab in Dublin, and soon hopefully the state lab as well. If you're to have any chance of validating your product based on results, the results need to come from an accredited lab.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pat. And on to the next question. Adults can easily get cannabis edibles in Ireland. Would it not be in the public's interest for the FSAI to call for the regulation of these products to better protect consumers and prevent kids accessing them so easily?
The cannabis edibles, I'll take it, they mean the THC sweets, that's already regulated. These products are illegal. The amount of THC in there is not our business, except for the fact that they're in foods, and that's where we become involved. I mean, the Gardaí and the customs are on a daily workload with drugs all around the place. This is just another avenue of drug trafficking and drug dealing, and the only reason we're involved is because they're coming in through food. So they're illegal already. We don't need any more legislation. We're concerned because of the safety aspects, especially with unwitting children who just like sweets. So it's already regulated for.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
Oh, God,
and on to the third question. Does the FSAI expect companies to comply with any THC maximum limit at all, or would the 0.2% plant level be the only thing checked?
Again, I mustn't have made it clear enough that 0.2% has nothing to do with food. There is no tolerance level in European or Irish food law for THC. It's a contaminant, and as yet, there is no established upper limit. So what we do as a food safety authority, we look at the safety aspects. We use the European Food Safety Authority acute reference dose, and we calculate that if you're ingesting or if you're allowed with the maximum permitted dose, if you're going to exceed that, then we perceive that as a safety threat, and we remove those products from the market.
Some contaminants
so
right here.
0.2% doesn't work in any facet of food law.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Pat. And on to the next one. Can you advise how the FSAI is going to address the number of unregistered products, 60% as per your presentation, on Irish shelves?
Yeah, and there is a serious problem on the Irish market at the moment, which we are working behind the scenes feverishly to get all our ducks in a row as such. Unfortunately, when we published the results of that report in 2020, COVID came along. It's sidelined us out of our offices, and we're still out of there, as you can see. It sidelined a lot of the official agencies, including the HSE, who would be the frontline officers.
Didn't sideline the fucking cops.
Now, again, with the cyber attack on the HSE in recent times, that really hasn't helped us either.
Somebody should cyber attack the cops, actually, in fairness.
An excuse, but that's just
that'd be a good one.
Things are more difficult when you're working
Any
remotely.
hackers out there going to take down the Gardaí?
We have been working behind the scenes. We have identified a number of products, and we're talking more than 30, that shouldn't be on the Irish market. They're coming from outside of Ireland. And these are not the THC sweets now. These are CBD products that are unauthorized novel foods. We've had a few discussions with some in the industry. We didn't get a very positive response. Pretty much we were told there's money to be made here, and we're not complying because others will make money while we're not on the market. That's not acceptable in our books. So we're working with the HSE at the moment. We have a list put together, and we're working on the legalities of how we shall proceed. So we're also working with colleagues at the border posts so that any products coming in that shouldn't be on the market will be stopped there as well. So we are working, and hopefully in the coming months, we'll see some of these products be removed.
That's great. Thanks for explaining that, Pat. And the next one, could you please give more details into what ingredient from hemp the FSAI doesn't consider a novel food?
Well, I suppose as the novel food catalogue from 2009 states, any food or ingredient from the hemp plant is probably not novel. Now, hemp can only be cultivated if it has a certain level of THC, 0.2%. So we don't believe that any of the products from a hemp plant that's legally cultivated will pose a safety threat in terms of THC. The problem arises when you start trying to extract desirable components like CBD, purifying, concentrating, etc. So if you just, for example, use cold press and squeeze the oil out of the plant material, whether it's the seeds or the whole plant, we don't consider that novel. Other member states do, and we acknowledge that, and it's their prerogative. We don't.
Okay, thanks for going into detail on that, Pat. And we just have time for a couple more questions before we run over. So I'll just do two more. So the next one, cannabis was used for thousands of years by humans, and only because of prohibition is the novel food applicable. Cannabis was used in the EU illegally long before 1997. So should it not qualify for the exemption?
I suppose the only answer I can give to that is I sat in 2 meetings of the Novel Food Working Group in Brussels. All 28 member states were there at that stage. The industry was represented, the European industry, the UK industry, and they failed on 2 occasions to convince the Commission and the member states that there was a history of food consumption of hemp products in the European Union before 97. So I think that argument has been trashed out. If somebody has more evidence, then that's fine. They can come forward with it and it might change the whole lot. The real issue for us is the concentrates or the derived products. We're not too interested in the actual whole plant extracts or the plant itself. Other member states have issues there. So I suppose you would have to address that question to those member states who prohibit any form of the hemp plant as a food in their jurisdictions.
Great, thanks, Pat. And finally, on to the last question. So CBD tea is not legal?
I suppose that might be a little bit of a stretch. CBD tea that includes only the flowers or the buds is not legal because it's a narcotic. I do see on a few occasions other CBD teas that are just leaf material. Now, whether they contain flowers or not, it really is probably too much work to go and try and look at that. But when we see sachets or jars containing the buds, the flowers, and nothing else, that's black and white illegal as far as we're concerned. And it's not that there's a safety issue, it's just a legal issue. They're defined in the 1961 UN Convention, and that is linked to general food law, which defines what is not a food.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Pat. And apologies to those of you who sent in questions that we didn't get to answer this morning. If you email your question to info@fsai.ie, we'll get back to you. So thanks to everyone for taking the time to tune in, and just a few things before we say goodbye. So every few months we run a number of free events for small food businesses, and so far this year we've hosted breakfast bites on managing food safety in your business, food safety training, food labeling, and starting a food business. So if you're interested in attending similar events to these, you can subscribe to our event alerts, fsai.ie/subscribe, and we'll pop a link in the chat box. And you'll receive a notification as soon as registration opens for our events. So after today, a survey will launch, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. It'll help us create future events suited to your needs. And just before we go, I just want to mention that in the handout section, Pat's presentation is available if you wish to download it before the end of the webinar. So thanks so much to Pat for speaking, and also a huge thanks to Elaine, Jane, and Christina. And thank you all again for joining us this morning. Take care.
So, excuse me. There you go, guys. That was the event from the FSAI, and I hope after seeing that now that the CBD people out there, the different shops, the different kind of stores that are involved in selling these products really get up in arms, because there's a lot of issues after being raised there by this. Specifically any product out there that has a concentrate of CBD added to it, whether it be hemp oil, olive oil, any of them really. That's what I'm after hearing from this individual, is that they require the novel foods approval prior to being put on the market. So I'm not aware of any of them actually having that novel food approval. So pretty much like even even Holland and Barrett now are in the firing line from the FSAI, surely, because any food that has CBD added to it afterwards is going to be now deemed as unfit to be on the market until it gets that novel foods approval. As well, you know, the likes of Little Collins, and any of the other kind of stores out there, Relief, there's the Funky Skunk, Mad, there was a number of them there that were selling kind of a CBD products. You know, as for what this guy was saying here is, no, all of those were illegal. They were not fit for being sold on the market, and that means that everyone in court right now is kind of in trouble because they don't have the support of the European laws, as they were kind of being led to believe to. So very interesting times. It'll be very interesting to see how this whole thing plays out in the coming months. Hopefully there's some progress made in the courts, hopefully positive progress as well. You know, I wouldn't like to see any criminal findings to be made against some of the CBD stores that are up there, because a lot of them are expecting to be able to win their cases, and I would hope that they're able to as well. So we'll see what happens with that, like. But I suppose really that event there in itself just was very negative in a sense. Like, I'll be very interested. You know, Irish Hemp Harvest is out there doing some product as well. So you know, I wonder how this might affect yourselves going forward. I see there on that as well. You know, for the people out there hoping to grow and process the flowers. What they're saying here is these flowers are narcotics themselves, as per the definitions of the European Convention on Drugs, even per the definitions of Irish law. The flowering fruit and tops of the cannabis plant. Like, you need to get a ministerial license of some sort, an exemption, in order to kind of process those into any further products. But again, even to process those further, you need what he's talking about is the Novel Foods Act. Now, I think there is one company out there, is it Wild Atlantic Hemp, I think is the name of the company. I think they claim to have used a traditional method that doesn't need the Novel Foods Act, and I'm not too sure what that is. I don't know. So I'll have to do a bit of investigation there and see what their views are. I'll have to do a few interviews after this to see who was present at that and who has some views to share on it. Because I would be interested in other people's views in this. I know for myself, if I was out there running a CBD business right now, I would be looking to form some sort of a gathering in order to mobilise to go forward to be better represented. Because at the moment, what's going on out there is the Irish people are being excluded from a multi-billion euro industry that's kicking off now worldwide. And the FSAI, seems like their pathway is paved in reinforcing the prohibition of cannabis and continuing with this thing that THC, CBD, anything from the cannabis plant is a contaminant unless it has this novel foods approval. And as they asked my question, you know, and I think it was, and I'm glad they asked it too. It was an important one. I asked a few of them, but they asked the one about the illegal use of cannabis. It's been used illegally across the EU in many forms. You know, people have been cooking with it and smoking it and doing all sorts of things, you know. But obviously I would say that the rosin, the CO2, a lot of that stuff is very new. But I would say if the prohibition of cannabis didn't exist earlier, we would have learned about these techniques, these processes, and used them a lot earlier. And again, they would have been there before 97 and not required the Novel Foods Act. Again, look what they've done. They've crafted it nicely, you know, they put the prohibition as there, you know, and that cut out all of the culture, all of the traditions could have been established around its use, that will be established once it's legal and regulated, as it has been over in places like America and Canada. So we're being denied access to all of those opportunities, all of that innovation, because you're going to have to jump through these hoops now because of the Novel Foods Act. And that's not really an easy process, especially there's been many CBD companies actually with applications in for years They think some of them had them in for over 2 years, and they were even bringing cases against the EU. And now the whole COVID thing is causing a big mess there. So the whole thing is a headache, to be fair. Like, so I'll be getting on to a few companies. I'll be getting on to the guys at Relief, Little Collins, and a few other companies around there as well, to see what their views are, to see if they'll come on, have an old chat in the podcast, and I'll try to get that out to you as well, guys. So nice one, everybody, for tuning in. I see loads of comments after coming in. I see a lot of people were kind of like, yeah, what the fuck is he on about? Yeah, you know, I got onto the FSAI many years ago, back in 2018, when I was even before I graduated from college. I actually wanted to volunteer my final year project to the FSAI to do something and looking and investigating these CBD products, and they refused me. I was just like, all right, fair enough. I even applied them when I graduated from college, saying, hey, look, I've kind of got experience and expertise and a lot of knowledge about cannabis. I'd love to come and work with the FSAI and to help maybe get a safer environment out there for consumers. And again, no thanks, good luck, man. Obviously I was coming in with maybe a bit of a tainted background, being an advocate for its legalization, so no surprise they're not going to be hiring me, like, but you know, you can't blame me for trying. I also got onto the HPRA as well around the time they were doing their report, and I was offering to come in for free, volunteer, all of my kind of thing, if they wanted to ask me questions. You know, I wasn't graduated at that time, I suppose, so maybe that was a bit put me on the back foot, I suppose, in getting in touch. But I'm like, you know, hey, look at this stoner, get in touch with us. Like, but look, come here, every person's views should be accepted. Like, you know, see how their discrimination, their stigma cut them off an opportunity to communicate with somebody who would have been able to share with them knowledge that might have given them a bit of a much better understanding than what they had, what was displayed there. Here we are, 2021 now. Cannabis has been legal in certain parts of America for over 25 years. Like, you know, and here we are, the FSAI is still talking about cannabis as being, or THC as being dangerous and a contaminant and da-da-da. You know, like, guys, like, I don't know, that was interesting. That was a good learning process for me anyway. I enjoyed being able to sit down and kind of see the mindset of these people, or where they're at, and what they know, because to be fair, like, they're way back there in the reefer madness era, to be fair. They are prohibitionist supporters, I would imagine, and they're benefiting from it too. Because you heard it there, like the FSAI and stuff like that, all of this work now they're getting from it, like even the knock-on work getting sent on to the Forensic Science Ireland then as well, who are inundated already with the illegal drugs, and now they're dealing with samples being sent in from bloody the FSAI, the Food Safety Authority Ireland. Like, what a joke of a system we have, like. And meanwhile, our public hospitals are going under bloody funded, our youth services are going underfunded, mental health services, like, you know what I mean? I could go on about the amount of essential services that are going underfunded, and meanwhile we're wasting millions and millions of euros on this stupid bloody prohibition of cannabis, man. And the opposite could be happening. We could be making millions of euro from the sale and regulation of cannabis products. We could have a community of people benefiting from not being stigmatized anymore. We could have our prisons less full, or that making it safer for both the prisoners and the prison officers. You know, what in the name of God are we doing in this society? Like, I just don't understand it, and I hope soon sense can prevail out there, and you know, we as a people can unite and just force the government. Like, we can't ask them to do it. And I was just like, no, you gotta do this. We are the taxpayers. We are sick as shit of your stupid wasting of our money. It's silly, it's nonsensical. Our streets are unsafe. We've organised crime gangs going out there with guns and knives and stuff. You're recruiting young kids, teenagers. These teenagers have got posters of bloody Scarface up in their wall, and they idolise this kind of a gangster lifestyle, not knowing that they're just a bloody pawn in some big game. And this isn't, this is life. You know what I mean? We can't be playing these games out there. We have to look at this in a realistic and logical way. The prohibition of drugs is a failed fucking policy, and it's gotta change, like, because otherwise, you know, these kids who looked up the Scarface and all of this stuff, like, you know, they could be walking down the street where your son or daughter, or even you yourself could be walking down someday, like, and you know, one of their rivals could be on the other side of the street, and you know, the fool pulls out a gun. Like that's where we're at today in Ireland. Like, you know, there's kids, literally kids, walking around with knives and guns out there, as part of bigger organised crime gangs, and it's a scary bloody notion, that anyone would want to continue with this kind of a policy, you know. Yeah, so bareback monster, thousands of people outside the dial blowing the biggest cloud of smoke this country has ever seen would convince them, I bet. The 10th of July, guys, that's our opportunity. I believe there's a march being organised as part of the gathering on the day. So the 10th of July above there, the Phoenix Park at 2 p.m. Be there or be square, guys. Honestly, like, you know, if this is your opportunity now to join, to unite as a massive kind of a movement of a community of people who are just sick, shit, and tired of being discriminated against, and we're just coming out now and we're going to unite and be seen in public and be proud. This time last year at the smoke up in the Phoenix Park, the major smoke up event, there was over 1,000 people definitely showed up. There was no march or anything gathered. They weren't even allowed to use their speakers because of COVID regulations and things like that. So it was nice, quiet, and it was a very nice atmosphere. It was a great gathering of people. But this time I'm going to hope to see at least 10,000 people. I want to see 10,000 people, and even Gino has no hope for it. It seems like people are saying, man, I hope they got that the lads, and I got her into Green Bear to ask him the question. So I hope he asked them the question. But will Gino and People Before Profit be supporting the major smoke up event? I haven't seen their support of it yet. Why not? Like, this is what in the name of God is he doing with a cannabis regulation bill if he's not even going to go out and support the people who are organising and mobilising the community that he's hoping to get a bill passed to represent? What are they doing? Like, you know, and I could be wrong. Maybe he's shown support for it. Maybe he's voiced some support already for the major smoke up event, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it on Twitter. I haven't seen it on Facebook. I haven't seen it or heard of it anywhere. And that's sad. Like, that's a sad state of affairs. Like, oh, what's going on? Really, like, you know, why is he not out there supporting the activists and the community and the supporters of this? Like, and a nice one there, Bogwan Son, as well, for getting in the old support of this show. Protests soon. We have our voices heard. Definitely. As I say, guys, I want to see 10,420 people above there in Phoenix Park on the 10th of July. And again, I want to see not only the People Before Profit, but the Green Party. The Green Party voiced their support recently of the legalisation of cannabis. The Green Party better be supporting this fucking event. If they're not supporting this event, guys, do not vote for the Green Party. If the People Before Profit do not support this event, I would say, you know, whatever about the bill they're putting forward, but that for me seals it, like, you know, where they lie. You know, if they're not out there supporting the people, the grassroots community organisations that are getting stuff done, getting the support of the cannabis community, then for me, you know, they don't deserve your vote. That's my idea anyway, like, you know, at least not in that issue. So again, People Before Profit better be supporting, and Sinn Féin too. Sinn Féin better be coming out and supporting this as well. If they want our support later on in any election that comes up, they better be coming out here on the 10th of July. And I'm calling it right here, right now, guys. Get in touch with all of your local representatives that if they're from any of these parties and say there's an event on above in the Phoenix Park on the 10th of July and that ye better be supporting it. If you don't support it, ye are losing my support. Voice it to him, put it straight to him like that. Like, if you don't support this, I'm not supporting you. That this is going to be if we can get the 10,000 people like up to that event, if we can get a major protest on our hands, then we will have captured the attention of the media, and then it's up to us then in order to keep that momentum rolling. We cannot drop the ball. It'll have to be like straight away that day, like, and I hope the major smoke up guys have it planned, like, but I've an announcement myself I'll be making on the day anyway of another event, but I hope they have another event planned themselves as well, because we have to keep this momentum rolling. Like, if we get 10,000 the next time, we want 20 bloody thousand, you know what I mean? Bigger and better all the time, like, because the government, we can't ask them to do it, we have to force them to do it now this time. And it's people on the street, it's people demanding that they bring change about, and that's how we're going to get it done. So yeah, Get pretty wound up there at times. Bhagwan Son, he's all about mentioning it's policymakers' choices again. This is the issue. He's just doing his job speech again. Like, this is the problem also. But he's getting paid by, apologies there. He's getting paid by, 1 second, I'm just going to get rid of that music. Oh, excuse me there, right? Yeah, somebody else phone ringing in the background. I don't know if he could actually hear it, but it was distracting me. But again, this is the problem. This guy in the FSAI, like Michael or Mr. O'Mahony, he's getting paid by the public's purse, you know, to go out there and do the job. And he's like, oh, but I'm only doing like what the policymakers are telling me to do. Even though, like, come here, what's your brain telling you? Is this correct? If you were to look at like what's going on over in America, like, would you really continue on with this? Like, you look at other policies in Europe, like such as the decriminalisation of all drugs in Portugal, like, well, would he not agree with these kind of things? Like, and would he not think it's in the public's interest again? Do you know, him as a regulator out there, like keeping an eye on the market and reinforcing the regulations, that he would be like, kind of, we need regulations here for this, because this kind of black market thing is nonsense. Like, so is that really the best use of our money? You know, with people like that? I'm just doing my job. Making work for himself is what he's doing, it seems. Straw clips. It's funny that they always say about how you are funding horrible killer gangsters, then fucking legalize and regulate an absolute load of dirt. Guess I will move to Spain. Yeah, you see, that's unfortunate that many people are viewing it like that they might leave Ireland because of our stupid bloody backwards laws. And it's unfortunate. Like, I love this country. I have a family here. I don't want to be leaving it. Like, and I hate the fact that there's other good people. Like, you know, I don't think I've met you yet, Straw Clips. Like, but I'm sure, like, if we were able to meet up at a nice social avenue where we could consume cannabis and have a nice cup of tea or a hot chocolate or something like that, we would probably get along well. And now, if you leave, you go to Spain, I'm being robbed of that opportunity, and our community is being robbed of another good person. And that's shameful. How many people have we lost already? Do you know? Many, I would imagine. Ignorance still to this day in 2021, and we still have to work to make our country aware things are outdated. Why do we have the solution for them there for them? Yeah. You know, I just don't understand their ignorance either. Yeah, what is it about them? And for me, I think, you know, they're just happy to do their job, and they don't like questioning the narrative, because you don't want to be the guy to kind of stand up and go against the current and as such. Like, it's always easier to go with the flow. So it says a lot about a person. Other individuals out there getting the comments in. DB Woodcraft, any politicians, go and contact a lot of them. That's what I'm saying, DB Woodcraft, guys. Get in touch, any of you out there, if if you got contact with any of your local representatives, get in touch with them. And I don't know, would you get on to Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael? Like, if you want, by all means, I suppose. Like, but I don't think they'll be very welcome at the event, to be fair. You know, unfortunately. Because they're in power, like, to be fair. Like, but if they came and, you know, if they, like, they may actually do something, so maybe, yeah, they might be welcome. Martin, it's 5 a.m. here. Good morning, Jimmy. Nice one for tuning in, Jimmy. I was just streaming an event from the FSAI about CBD legality and other products like that in Ireland and the EU. So if you missed it, check it back. Anyway, it was an interesting one if you're into the CBD business in Ireland. Bareback Monster, we got this, Martin. We'll all be there for the biggest push yet for cannabis in Ireland. It's going to be remembered in history as the moment Ireland copped on and finally tucked the finger out. Good to hear. Like, I hope to meet many of you guys. You know, we should have a little meeting spot. The event is kicking off at 2:00, so maybe we might have an unofficial gathering or something of the Martin's World community. I'd like to meet the people just before the event, so I might make a good effort to arrive in Dublin or around 11 or 12 that morning, and we can kind of meet up there around the area or something beforehand for an old cup of tea and a chat. But before the old festivities kick off and things, so yeah, I'll work on that. As I say, I'll see what the train times are and stuff like that, I'm going to get the train up. If anybody wants to meet up in Cork and get the thing, I've actually seen one of the lads run on was talking about trying to organise a bus to go from Cork to Dublin. So that might happen actually as well. So maybe there's a few other people out there might want to leave from the city. A few of us box in there and we hire out a bus and we just get the bus up to Dublin together. Should be an interesting one. So yeah, let's see what happens there on that one. Get in touch with me, drop me a message, guys, if anybody wants to get involved and help organise that as well. I know Ronan was out there mentioning it as well, like, so we'll kind of organise it there amongst ourselves. Fat Schnacks, I'd hate to be pessimistic about it, but we have such incompetent scum governing us. They have no interest in change. It's always more the same. Yeah, Fat Snacks, that's why I'm saying it's the people that have the power, that we have the power. If we get out there and we have a massive movement, a united of civil disobedience, imagine having about 10,000 people there all together with cannabis in their possession and things like that. That's a strong message, because a united force, it's hard to be reckoned with then at that point, you know. So I hope we can do that and send that strong message to the government that hey, yeah, you can't push us around any longer. We're getting organised. We're a force to be reckoned with, not to be reckoned with. Martin Organ, the state only cares about control. No matter how much it costs us, they create nothing but jobs for themselves and fleece the taxpayer raw. Yeah, and we've to change this. Like, we elect these people. More people need to run as independents that represent their community than these voting for these bloody parties. Because all you're doing when you're voting for the individuals in these parties is supporting a party who will only really support itself and things like that. I'm a big supporter of independence. That's always my view. I would always view an independent as being more loyal to a community, and obviously, look, they have just as much potential to be a complete scumbag as the rest of them, and many independents have turncoat in their community in the future, or in the past. But I would always just be optimistic and hope that you can judge a person's character more once you get to meet them and things. So that would be just me. I'm an independent man. Straw clips. Spain has some beautiful bud, lads. Checking out Drew is sharing YouTube's videos. He went to Barcelona, and Jesus, the prices, the system, and the weed is fantastic. Yeah, I know. Something like it just makes you jealous that, you know, a quick trip at Barcelona, it's about €20 or something like that there to get a flight from Dublin and back or something. Return flights from Dublin, €20 over to Barcelona, and next you can just go in and for the same €20 you buy a membership there to a club, and you've got access to beautiful cannabis. And sometimes it could be as cheap as like €5 and €6 a gram and things like that. And here you are over here paying €20 a gram, lining the pockets of organised crime gangs and things like that out there. Come on, like, we want to see our community and industry flourish. Any other comments out there? We may all meet up the Martins World community and just have a chill little sesh. Yeah, that's it. Like, I look forward to that. Straw clips and DB Woodcraft, how to fit 10,000 Cork people on a bus. Are we going to get 10,000 Cork people going? That'll be fucking savage. As I say, I will be making an announcement kind of closer to the day and on the day above there as well, of events happening down here in Cork. So we will have something to be getting out and up in arms again, because we are the rebel county as well, and you know, the biggest county, or the true capital of Ireland. Dublin's the English capital. Yeah, but us Cork people love Cork, don't we? I need to discuss my comedy sketch show. It is called To My Government. Yes, definitely. I look forward to hearing stuff like that there. We need to get a bit more comedy into this, I think, that because if there's people out there who are good content creators, good cartoon artists or anything like that, I would love to start seeing some cartoons. Like, anybody know about the skits on Today FM? Fucking, geez, what were they called? Gift Grubs. I would love to see some Gift Grubs style comedy sketches, you know, with the boys above, Steinman Harris and, you know, Stephen Donnelly and all of the boys, and just pure skits of the boys, and around prohibition and drugs, and, you know, fucking who was it? Is it Leo? And he's on about he's taking his jokes. Like, you know, imagine doing a little comedy sketch there of Leo when he's 16 taking a lot of jokes at a party or something. You know, just comedy such, bring attention to the issue, make a joke out of it, but like, you know, there's a message there in the joke, like, and we need to capture the attention of the public, is what I'm saying. I'm doing my little thing here. I'm not a fucking great artist or anything like that, so I'm sure there's people out there who can do stuff like this. And you know, I've got an audience there. If you'd like to come in and maybe even be a part of Martin's World, make another kind of sub show, as I kind of have with the 420 News, by all means, guys. I've got the camera, the soundboards, the mics and stuff. If you're in around Cork and things, like, I'm open to kind of getting people in. I'd love to be able to hire out a studio venue that we could be able to share and things like that. But look, it's something we're working towards. But if there's people out there want to do this, like, I think that would be a great way in order to bring attention to the issue. Comedy, people love these short little clips. Like, I keep on fucking, here we are over an hour to get into a video, like, so my stuff to be lengthy at times. So there's people out there who can do this stuff. Like, I have somebody who recently got in touch with me and was like, look, I'd love to be able to turn some of your lengthier clips into shorter clips. So there's now another YouTube page out there called Martin's World Clips. So if anybody's on YouTube out there and wants to kind of tap that in, you'll be able to find it. Yeah, nice one for doing that as well to that volunteer. You're a legend. Because I'm just doing way too much stuff and I don't get time to be able to go down and to be dissecting my clips and things. Like, so if there's other people who would like to get involved like that in any way, shape or form, you know, if you think you can contribute to help improve the show and improve the offering, get in touch. Like, you know, we can make some great stuff happen together. Again, I'm not attached to Martin's World. Martin's World can become a small thing within a bigger thing. Like, if we want to start off our own little media network or something like that together, who knows, the potential is great, like, you know, and it's all about just the message. Like, it's not about any egos or anything like that. It's about getting this message over the line, keep hammering the points home. Legalization, regulation of bloody all drugs needs to happen, like, in Ireland, in order to just protect our community, protect our society. Prohibition has failed. Misuse of Drugs Act, it's bloody outdated. Shy Son, Martin, I can make sound bites and such for you. Nice one, Shy Son. Again, pop me an email through Martin's World and stuff like that. Again, just let me know if your email isn't Shy Son or something like that. Just let me know who you are, and I'll be able to kind of hook people up with different positions as kind of editors and things like that, so they can just kind of add as they would like. Again, you know, I'm very trustworthy of people and stuff like that, so you know, don't make me regret it, guys. Don't be putting up a load of like dodgy videos or something like that. So yeah, I'll trust you out there. A good community of people. I've no reason not to trust you. Pod 85 supporting crime though over there, unfortunately. Bogwan's Son, I have Adobe masterclass for anyone who needs editing software, etc. if needs be. A nice one for that. I actually signed up recently for the Adobe the student offer. I always had cracked programs before. I was using Sony Vegas or something, but I actually signed up for the student one. I got it for like 20 quid a month, which was very handy. So I kind of was using the Adobe there now for the last month, getting to learn a bit with it. And they've got some cool stuff over there, in fairness, and that's why I'm on about the character animate. That was another app that they have there, and I was kind of trying to make a character animation of Frank Fian, so I could control Frank Fian and say stuff like, and be Frank Fian in a video form. It would have been funny enough, like, so I'm still getting to work in it in the background, but look, I've only so much time I can actually dedicate to this stuff outside of college, family, this, and I wish I was two people. DB Woodcraft, fair play to him for helping out. Would love to help in some way if I can. Not sure how though. A bit artistic and sometimes autistic. Come here, DB Woodcraft. In fairness, if you can do some more cool art pieces like that, and just keep on, you know, showing what the community has to offer. You know, because if this was legal and regulated, you know, you would, I suppose, as an artist, have a good standing there to make a kind of a living with your skills, like so in fairness, like imagine if you were to get arrested because of your cannabis use. Like, it's kind of what I'm saying. Imagine what we're being robbed of the community is this artistic skill. Not many people have it. I know certainly I don't have that kind of artistic skill to be making that kind of a wood craft as you did. So again, keep on displaying that. Keep on displaying what great people are out there, but in the cannabis community who would be robbed from our society. Should we lock them up? And that's an important thing to be doing as well. You know, it's not that like, oh, I smoke cannabis and I'm everything is cannabis. It's like, no, come here, look, I'm a cannabis consumer. That's just a small part of my life. But look, I'm all these other things as well. Whether it be, look, I'm a great artist, I'm a great piano player, I'm a great bloody videographer, whatever it might be. You've many other attributes, like, you know, it's just displaying the fact that you use cannabis, like, but you have to display it again. Look, I use cannabis, a small thing, and look, imagine if I was locked up because of this very small part of my life. Look at what you're robbing from everybody else. Again, for even myself, like, look, I have 4 years of herbal science. I'm still going on through college. I would like to be able to add to and further the understanding of plants and psychedelics and things like that in this world. And if I was to be locked up and taken away, I'm being robbed. Our society is being robbed of a good person who was trying to contribute positively to society. And that's detrimental to our society. Like, you know, we can't do that. Imagine Steve Jobs, like, if he was to get caught when arrested with his acid and stuff like that, you know, and Steve Jobs never went on to do the things, and, you know, some people might argue that that might have been a good thing for the world, but look, in fairness, like, some of his technology is pretty fucking cool, like, you know, and you know, these people are all drug users, like, you know, and that's kind of the thing I'm saying. This prohibition of drugs is foolish. Irush says, I'm a streamer who consumes cannabis doing what I love. And there you go, you know, there's many great people out there and have many great attributes. And, you know, again, streamers, how many, again, streamers are kind of, I would suppose, fall under the artist kind of branch of people. You're creators. But much as myself, I suppose, I say I'm not artsy, but look, I'm a content creator. I kind of come on here, do my little bits, and some people would argue, like, some of my posters and shit I've seen, oh man, the stick I've gotten over in Reddit because of my posters that I've made. I'm sure some of you out there have probably seen it, like, and it's laughable at times, like, but look, I'm not an artist, I'm not creative, like, I'm wearing black and navy right now, like, that'll tell you about how color coordinated I am. Jessica Deegan, and that course of learning is needed too, otherwise how will we know what is safe or not? Exactly. Mustawaz, was great to get down to that protest in Cork a couple of months back, seeing Martin in flesh and all. Yeah, it was good, definitely, to be able to meet people in person. There's been a number of people now who's coming up. I'm Toby and a few other people out there who I kind of know from the names on YouTube, and they'd come up and say, hey, I'm this YouTube name or whatever, like, and I'd be like, oh, sweet, nice one to meet you, like, John. It's always cool to kind of actually get to know the real person then as well. So yeah, I hope I get to meet many of you there up on the July 10th and as well down in Cork very soon again. I'd love to start my own edible business. It would be amazing to make some products people really enjoy. Unfortunately, this is impossible at the moment. I hope things get better in the next few years. Yeah, I see there's a few people out there already making names for themselves in the Irish edible market, you know. And fair play to them for doing what they're doing. And if they don't get caught, then, you know, they stand to get off as a nice, with a nice advantage over anybody who wasn't partaking in it while it was illegal. So it's kind of, the temptation is real for even people like yourself. You know, you want to set up a legitimate business. You see these guys out there doing it illegally, and you know, once it becomes legal, that these guys are going to be like, you know, they've got a nice customer base already, and it's like, you know, it's a tough one. Like, so again, as I say, guys, grow your own, have your own little circle of friends and stuff like that. And again, look, if you're passionate about having a little edible business, then, you know, again, just be doing it in the background for your friends, a small community, you know, every now and again. You have people kind of getting in orders there to you, and you know, just don't get too big. Like, just keep it as a hobby, as something you can hone a skill and get better at, and when the time comes, then, you know, you're much better off. Then, you know, you're much more ahead of the time of other people who weren't doing those kind of things, and at the same time, you know, you were supporting your friends and have a good community of people around you. DB Woodcraft says, I used to be a bud tender, but would love to be a... Oh, yeah, you used to be a bartender, but would love to be a bud tender. Yeah, that's a nice one. And do you know who was it? It was Martin O'Brien. He says that the Berkeley Patient Care Collective, the PCC, and yeah, they actually call their bud tenders cannabis consultants. So they're not bud tenders at all. So when you go into the store and you want to get cannabis and you want to talk to the person at the counter, that person's actually a cannabis consultant. And I like that name a bit more. It's a nicer ring to it, to be fair. So if I was to be setting up a cannabis business in Ireland, I would be following the footsteps of Martin O'Brien and the guys of Foxworthy Farms and the Patients Care Collective, and I would be calling the guys who serve you cannabis consultants, because when you go to them, yeah, they will be consulting you about the cannabis. You know that's exactly what they're doing. They will be asking you, well, what is it you're seeking? And then they will be advising you, you know, consulting with you as to what would be a good choice to make. A bud tender, you know, it's okay and all that, like, but a cannabis consultant, I think a cannabis consultant just has a bit more of a ring to it. If I was to be working in the industry anyway, that's what I would like to be called, when people would be asking me as to, you know, what I would advise them to, you know, go with cannabis. DB Woodcraft, nice one as well for supporting the show as well, man. Keep it lit, bud. Thanks very much. Again, I look forward to be able to meet you up in person there very soon. And I hope to be able to bring some maybe nice treats there to share with you as well when we meet up. Some homemade treats. And get in touch with me, guys, if you actually do want to meet up with me, and if you do have any nut allergies or anything like that, let me know. Yeah, straw clips, it does sound more professional too, in fairness, you know. And that's what we have to be. We have to be professionals at the end of the day. That's what we're striving towards. The Woodcraft, 10 years in the catering industry, and I've seen a lot of damage due to alcohol. Man, I worked for 2 years as a glass collector at the local pub here when I was younger, and man, wow, what a horrible place to be working. You know, just being over there, blood sober, going around collecting glasses, and people are just pissed drunk, like, it's just like, wow, man, like, it was such a turn off. Like, I don't know, I'm not big into alcohol and stuff, and I can see the benefit. I don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed nights out, I've enjoyed being pissed drunk and a part of that crowd and stuff, like, but it's like when you're sober looking at it, when the drunk people are over trying to talk to you, you're just like, oh my God, am I like this when I'm drunk? You mean the horrors? Yeah, bareback, I'm with you there. I'd certainly love to work for Foxworthy Farms as well, and I've said it to him, like, yeah, if he's ever getting involved in Ireland like that, you know, hook me up, Martin. Like, I'd love to be there at the forefront with Foxworthy Farms. I know I'm certainly lacking the financial backing to be able to get my own business up and running. So for somebody outside like himself, and again a Cork man as well, I'm sure he would be more than happy to be able to get a farm up and running in Ireland, and more importantly here in Cork. um, that's what they do in America. Treat the condition with the relevant strain of cannabis. Yeah, that's it, Martin. Cannabis consultants all the way. Jessica Deegan saying, how much does a person have to, or how much does a person have to drink until they get alcohol poisoning? Not very much. Do you know, to be fair, not very much. If for the wrong person, very little. For a person with maybe a strong tolerance to it, a couple of maybe a bottle or so of vodka, in a very quick period of time could certainly do a lot of damage very quick. So again, you know, not a lot. Again, it's very easily to access it. You know, I could walk down to the off license right now probably with maybe €50. €50 would be getting me definitely a lethal amount of alcohol. You know. And what's happening, Charlene? What's going on out there? I hope you're well. I was just sharing the FSAI event there about the CBD products and stuff like that. I wasn't too sure. Maybe you might have actually signed up to it and were tuned in yourself. But again, I think you're involved in the industry yourself out there. If you ever want to share your own views, because I know you've been affected by it and stuff, and have experienced some raids. So maybe when I catch up there above on July 10th, or hopefully we can actually catch up sooner and maybe promote the All Major Smoke Up event there a bit more as well. Because I think that it's an opportunity now for a massive representation of the cannabis community, and calling for over 10,000 people to be able to come out and to march, you know, to the Dial with the Major Smoke Up crew. So I'm hoping to see that, and I want to see all of the political parties to come out like that have expressed any support for the community in the past. The Green Party, People Before Profit, Sinn Féin, Labour, all of them, every one of them should be out supporting this protest, because if they don't deserve our support otherwise. And yeah, it certainly has been long overdue. All right, Charlene. And again, Charlene, I hope all is good. I look forward to catching up with you soon. So guys, I'm gonna love you and leave you all. I hope to be back again, very soon tomorrow, 4:20 news. So do tune back in for that. And I should have some interviews as well lined up and ready to release over the weekend as well, Fee. So keep an eye out for those too. So have a good afternoon, guys. Yeah, it's an early one. I was about to say evening. I'm normally used to saying good evening, geez. So have a good afternoon, because we're still even in the morning time. So go on about, have a good day, and we'll chat soon. Much love. Peace. Let's keep it lit.